to be able to come in and represent the USHL here in this way, in this manner, and be able to educate this group. It's always a fun group, this little area, because you guys are almost there, right? And there's a lot of opportunity to grow over the next couple of years for you, right? Because as you start to prepare, you're now in that mode where we like to kind of start to think about this phase as almost like the first round phase. Scouts are going to start to pay more attention to you. Game is getting a little bit more serious. And this is the time where it becomes a little bit more the business side of the game. And when I mean business side, it's more about professionalizing your process, right? If you're on this call, you're here because you understand, hey, there is a professional process to playing in the USHL, to playing Division One, to playing NHL, if that's your dream. So a big part of what we want to dive into today is how to get you guys and influence you to just start thinking about that part a little bit more, how to take it a little bit more serious with the environment that I'm currently in, because it's coming. No matter how you slice it, guys, it's coming. It's right around the corner. And I'm sure Sean's going to touch on some of this stuff too, of you have to understand that this is now becoming, hockey's not so much of, hey, this is just fun and I can go do whatever I want. It becomes more, hey, I'm a part of a culture, a system, right, that I want to be a part of. So the choices that you make personally, right, with the choices that you make professionally, you got to understand how to contrast the two. Right? This is something that we talk to our players all the time. There's the part that you want out of this process, and we were actually just talking to one of our 07s earlier today. There's the part that you want to deal with in this process, right? But then there's going to be a part in this process where you have to give the organization, the team, the scouts, whoever's there, what they want. And so things we're going to talk about today will help you to start aligning and thinking about that. And the beauty of it is you have a couple of years to go. Most of you guys, maybe one or two of you, maybe are fortunate enough to play in the league next year, but that'll be very tough for you. At your age, as an 07 to jump in, that'll be a huge jump. You'll learn a lot. That'll be tough. But for most of you, you're a couple of years away. So some of the skills we're going to talk about from a mental skills standpoint and mindset performance is to help you see how to naturally align with what's coming, right? A big part of what our culture is and what we teach our players is we're trying to make this as natural of a process as possible. So things we'll talk about today is to open your mind towards, it sounds simple in nature, and it is. A lot of it is simple, but the complexity lies in what's getting bounced off from the ecosystem, right? And so we'll dive into that and talk more about what we mean as we move along. So as we get in here, make sure we can see this okay. All right. Make sure that's popping up. Frank, we good there, buddy?
Yep, good, perfect.
Awesome. All right. So as we're going through, guys, the thing that we're going to talk a lot about today, so this is our recipe, if you will, right? Fundamentally, every one of our players that come through, at the core of it, we've developed this over the last dozen years. And way before that, from my coaching days and all that, this is basically over the last 30 years in the game. Here was just a collection of ingredients that if I had to break it down and say, from a mindset perspective, these are the things that we want to put our time into and invest into in our process. And I'm not going to go too deep into all of the ingredients, but I just wanted to give you a visual of what the ingredients look like. And the idea of why we play with ingredients is because one is not more important than the other. Just like when you play on a line and you have 5 players plus the goalie, right? We have a team. Just like when coach has various systems, we have a D zone system, we have a neutral zone system, we have an offensive zone system potentially, right? There's all kinds of different dynamics that go into it. So we want to open our minds to thinking in a recipe format. That when I put these things together, they just taste good. And so to illustrate the point, in the chat, I want you guys to put down, what is your favorite sandwich? What is your favorite meal? What's your go-to? What's that thing for you that's, I just love this. I could eat this every day, or this is just my jam. Put in the chat, toss in there, let's see what we got. We got pasta, beauty. Pasta BLT, nice. What else? Italian hoagie, love it. Chipotle, nice. Steak, PB&J. All right. What do we got? American pasta and chicken and rice, ham and cheese, chicken bowl, turkey, ham and cheese, right? PB&J, chicken and rice, a lot of similar. Stir fry, tacos, I think it's taco night tonight, actually, in the Malls household.
I'm getting hungry, Vinny. Let's go.
Oh yeah, let's go. So as you guys see, right, the recipes that are coming in, everybody's got their unique palate. And so what I want you to take away when you look at the recipes that are going on in there, this is exactly what we're talking about when it comes to the recipe. Everybody has their own unique taste personally. So if you look in the chat, you'll see it, right? Not everybody said the same exact thing. And I bet if you dove into pasta, steak, right, all these different, even PB&J, if you got more into the nuances, well, what do you like to have? Do you like to have chocolate milk, regular milk, or no milk at all with your PB&J? I bet there's different ingredients that go into that recipe that creates the experience. So when you think of mindset, mindset is a set of ingredients, right? It's a set of performance ingredients. And when you put them together, it creates a certain experience for you personally, right? So that's what we're trying to get to the core of when we talk about mindset performance. What do you actually know about your own personal process, right? What's that flavor like for you personally? What is it that when you taste, right? And you go in, it's like, what makes you tasty? What makes you delicious to a scout, ultimately, right? Funny way of looking at it and thinking about it, but that's how we roll. So when we talk about pre-combine, pre-tryout, some of you are doing USA Hockey stuff, Hockey Canada, maybe out of Europe, right? We're always doing tryout format type of events that come up this time of the year. And so combine's no different. So what we're going to get into is we'll talk a little bit about the first ingredient, and we'll just dive into why become self-aware. I'm sure you guys have heard it at some point in some fashion. Become self-aware. It's a big buzzword, but it's a little bit more complex than sometimes people realize. So we'll dive into one principle that's really important to pay attention to in becoming self-aware. We're going to talk about the 3 zones of mindset performance that we're all battling with, every single one of us, parents, players, coaches, everybody, we're all dealing with the same thing. And then we'll talk about the Mindset Method Foundation that if you start practicing these tools over the next couple of years, it will prepare you to be able to step into the USHL. And so as we get started, one of my favorite, right, why become self-aware? Ultimately, it creates mindset power. So what do we mean by mindset power? Well, simple. Right now, right, I think you can see me. You guys can see me? My little space in there? Okay. So how many fingers am I holding up right now? I know you can't see, right? So I want you to how many fingers am I holding up right now? Put in the chat. How many fingers do you think I'm holding up right now? Put it up in the chat. Nice. We got 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4. Nice. Keep it going. Keep it going. 3, 0. Good. 3, 3. A lot of threes. Love it. Love the 3. 4. Beauty. Right? So you get the picture of, take a look at the chat and just see. Look how many different numbers there are, right, on the board. Now you've got nice little variety and everybody's thinking in that process. So now, how many fingers am I holding up? Same thing, put in the chat. How many fingers am I holding up? Right? 2, 2, 2, beauty, right? So bam, instantly, right? Now that I know, away we go and everybody, right? 2, 2, right? Somebody ended up messing up and I love it, right? But ultimately, we know. And so the first principle that's important to understand of why become self-aware is that if you want to play in the USHL, you can't walk in thinking what your process is. You can't walk in thinking what your identity is. You have to know. You have to know. You're walking in, whether you're walking in USHL, Division I, NHL, any extraordinary level of performance. Take your pick. You're walking in with confidence. I know at the core of who I am, I know my sandwich. I know this is the unique recipe that you're about to taste, and I know it's valuable for this team. And so when we think about this principle, what we want to gather is, I know this is true. You personally believe it in your head that you know this is true about your game. And so what is that to you? What do you know is true? Right? Or do I think this is true? Am I kind of questioning it? Because if I'm in that kind of questioning mode, I'm instantly slower, right? Walking into a combine, a lot of players over the years, what are the things that we've noticed, right? There's some players that, let's say as an example, you're not a physical player. That's just not what your game is. And so in your mind, you're thinking, you know what? I got to go in and I got to be physical this weekend to show them that I can be physical. Well, if your game is shooting and you cognitively put your attention into thinking about being physical, then you're not thinking about shooting. You become hyper obsessed with trying to be physical. And so we'll talk about why that matters inside from a neuroscience perspective of why from a strategic standpoint, that creates issues for players, right? So when we talk about higher levels, what we're sharing with you guys right now, this is evidence-based observations, right? This is through the years what we've noticed is that why is important to know, right? Because if I don't know what is true about my game, then I'm instantly mentally slower when I play. So the infamous confidence, I need to have confidence. Everybody needs to have confidence. It's 100% true. If you go in and you don't know and you don't confidently know what you're bringing to the table this weekend at the Combine, in a year or two when you decide or when you get the opportunity to play in the USHL, if you don't know it to be true, then how do you expect a scout, a coach, or anyone else for that matter to believe it's true? And this is something that's really, really hard for a lot of people to understand. You can't fake what that energy is. It's easy to tell. This is why when scouts, when anybody watches, there's this sixth sense that happens. That when you watch a player, it's like an artistic thing that happens. You look and you go, I believe what that player is selling on the ice. I believe the body language. I believe what that player is expressing is truly who that player is. I can taste it. I can smell it. You can sense it. And so that's something that you want to pay attention to is that if in my own head, it's not true. If I don't believe it with 100% certainty, boom, I'm instantly slower than everybody else. Because the players that are going to get the opportunity in the league are going to be the ones that know with 100% certainty, this is what I bring to the table. Full stop. They know. They're not, I think. No. They know. This is what you're going to get. And with that, everybody in the stands knows that too. The other part is that if I don't know how to describe my game to another human being, then I will have human beings describe my game for me. So this is the infamous control what you can control. So we're talking about control what you can control. If you don't know how to control the narrative in your own mind, and you don't know how to control the narrative in discussions with scouts, with schools, right, with teams that are interviewing you for the draft, any one of these things, take your pick. If you don't know how to articulate that, I literally watched, guys, I'll give you one example. I watched in a Division I setting, I brought 2 players to a Division I school, sat down with them. One player was already in. One player was in. The coaches loved him, in. The other player, let's bring him along, let's talk. We come in, we do the interview process. When the interview is done, coach comes up to me quietly and says, hey, listen, we'll take a look at this kid. Like we're not saying, we're not going to offer him tonight, but the other player we're really interested in. What changed? They visited the school. They got the whole song and dance. The final piece, when they sat down and had a conversation, the player that they thought they were in love with, I'm not sure now. The other player who seemed quiet and shy, what they were able to articulate about their process and their game and who they were, okay, this kid's a ball player. Literally watched it unfold right before my eyes off of one conversation that went 15 minutes long. So when players think it's not important to be able to articulate it, do you want somebody else controlling the narrative for you? Or do you want to be able to participate in the narrative with the ecosystem of the USHL, of Division I, of the NHL, or of anything else extraordinary that you want to go and do professionally for that matter? Right? Being able to have control of understanding that, and again, we'll dive into that a little bit more, is such an important piece. Can you actually converse about who you are as a player? So next part we talk about, right, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but the 3 zones of mindset performance. So what we're really dealing with, right? So the neuroscience of what we understand about the brain is that there's an offensive zone, which is cognitive. You've probably heard, right? There's a lot of different things, cognitive skills that are out there, right? Working the eyes. There's all kinds of different drills you might see. The neutral zone. This is the spot where it's conscious. We're just aware of the situation of what's happening. You're not giving it a positive feeling. You're not giving it a negative. You're just giving it a what is feeling. And then there's a defensive zone, which is the unconscious part of our brains. And so why this matters is when you think about the unconscious part, ultimately what we teach and help players understand is that we have to defend ourselves against ourselves. When you're talking about playing in an extraordinary game, such as the USHL, you're talking about the pressure that comes with it, the judgment, right? All these different things, being on the road, and especially your first year. First year is, it's a big one. Suddenly you go from youth hockey and you're thinking, hockey's great, this is amazing, to then your first year in the USHL, and you're like, what is going on? I am exhausted. The coach doesn't like me. You start coming up with so many different narratives and stories where the reality is you just weren't prepared for what was about to happen. The jungle is the jungle. And the only way to learn is jump on in and go find out for yourself. This is the fundamental difference, is that unconsciously, you can't feed it. You don't know yet what it's like to be in the USHL. You have no idea. So what you build up until that point, the belief system. So the unconscious is coaches you've worked with, teams you've played on, influence from your parents, school, influence of Instagram, TikTok, and everything else, your advisor, agent, whatever you want to call it, right? Every single dynamic that's been out, that you've been fed all these years, is a part of your unconscious. So you have a lot of ideas. You have a lot of thoughts of what you think the USHL is going to feel like, but you don't actually know. So in there is flying all these ideas. But then on the other side of it, on the other side of the coin, we go to the offensive zone, which is automatic. This is the part that's cognitive. This is the part that when I go out and I play, I just shoot pucks, right? I just go and I fire pucks. I pass a puck. When I get it, boom, I dangle. When I have the puck on my tape, I automatically try to make a move. If I'm in the crease, right, I'm moving laterally to make a save. There's just an automatic response that I know is going to happen. And I ultimately don't have control of that, right? Because it's automatic. I'm responding to what's happening live in the moment. And so what's interesting about these two is what neuroscience tells us is unconsciously we have about 2,000 bits of information a second in our brain. 2,000 bits of unconscious information. Again, based off of all the beliefs, all the experiences, everything you've done up until this point today. But then on the cognitive sense, you have 5 bits, plus or minus 2, of information. So basically it's instant. Whatever you have there, you can kind of think of 1 or 2 things, especially when pressure kicks in. Right? The science tells us that once you're in a high pressure situation, really, you're lucky if you can think of 1 thing in the moment, right? And so playing with that is the neutral zone. Neutral zone, what's beauty about that is it's this conscious space. It's this space that I can slow down my mind and take 40 bits of information per second and go, what can I think about right now that I know is going to be useful for me today? So when we talk about the combine, what do I know? So whatever I did this year, remember 2,000 bits of information, unconscious, whatever role you played this year, whatever you know about your game this year, that's what you want to make conscious going into this weekend. You want to know, I'm going to think about what I know I do. I'm not going to think about what I think the scouts and people want to see. I'm going to think about what I know I already do, because that's the only way to survive in the jungle. You have to stick to what you know when you go in. And then once you're there, then you adapt to what's happening in the situation. And that adaptability, that's the main skill set when it comes to mindset, performance, or anything. At the higher levels, I've been shocked over the years, guys, of one simple example is literally seeing a first line American League hockey player saying, no, I won't go up to the NHL to be a 4th line guy. I've literally heard stories like that. No, I'm happy. I'm happy staying down here and I'll be a 1st line guy and I'm okay. I don't want to play that 4th line role. That's how closed off players can be because they're not willing to adapt. So that adaptability comes from thinking, consciously slowing down and saying, all right, what do I know about the situation right now? What can I recognize? What do I accept about it? And what can I do right now in this moment to give myself the best chance for success? And so that conscious piece is really important because my conscious thoughts create my cognitive reality. Wherever I position myself in the game, we all know that, depending on how the system is run, right? We've all experienced that in some way, right? Playing above the puck is a concept, right? If everybody's doing a good job of it, it's easier to defend. But if everybody's kind of running around and not paying attention and the puck is moving around, well, then we're running around and wasting more energy than is necessary. And so the mind, when we talk about that conscious piece, are we thinking about this weekend what we know we already do? Go all in on what you know, because that's what you want to sell to everybody that's watching. And so as we build upon that, right, the more conscious I am of how I know I play the game best, the less I have to think about how to play my game. Right? That's something I want you to just think about that. The more conscious I am of how I know I play the game best, the less I have to think about how to play my game. This is at the core of why becoming self-aware is so important. So next part, final piece here, guys, the mindset method foundation. So these are the skill sets, right? So what can I start practicing over the next couple of years to prepare myself? And again, this is a lifetime, right? This is working on this, right? At my age, at 44, still working at this every single day. Questions help us frame our mindset. Are you asking yourself essential questions? Because the type of questions that you ask yourself, that's the kind of answers that you're going to get. That's the kind of output that you're going to get. So questions are a very important part of the process. Stories help us shape our character. Again, that narrative we talked about earlier. We're going to talk about that in a second. What kind of stories do you have about your character and about your play? A lot of people think character has to do with, you got to be passionate. You got to adapt to situations. You got to be resilient. That's my favorite one, resiliency. Well, resiliency is a little bit tougher when you have one coach that gives you the world and another coach doesn't give you the opportunity, right? And so this resiliency thing that sometimes we peg as a character flaw or a good piece of your character, we argue, what kind of narrative do you have in your head can instantly change what that character looks like. Conversations help us develop our leadership. All leaders have is those personal conversations, those group conversations, right? The enrichment of who am I learning from? Who am I talking to consistently? How am I talking to them? So using the art of conversation, one of the biggest complaints you get from coaches today is these kids don't talk. They don't know how to talk. Well, how much are you practicing? Right? Mom and dad, players, you know how often we'll hear parents say something as simple as, well, every time I ask how you play, they just say good. I can't get anything out of them. So again, that good and I can't get anything out of them, you can practice this skill set because again, when you sit down with that school, when you sit down with that USHL team, are you prepared to have a real conversation? Because that real conversation is going to give away what kind of mindset you actually have. With our players, it's the number one way that we figure out every single time of where they're at. As soon as we start talking to them, boom, there it is. Okay, that's what you're thinking about right now. Boom, let's build off of that. And we continue to build along the way with that. So identifying the essential questions helps us mentally position our mindset. So the questions, as you keep asking, so when you move into this weekend and you think about, okay, why didn't the coach play me in the last shift there? You might think to yourself, or why wasn't coach playing me with certain guys? Or why did coach say this to me? Right? There might be all these different things that you think about versus, you know what? Did I get my shot off today? If my shot is really what I know I bring to the table, was I able to move the puck like I usually do today? What opportunities did I have today? Was I able to do that? When I was in the crease today, and I'm good at moving the puck. I'm good at coming around the net and being able to grab the puck and move it. Did I do that today? Or did I kind of stay a little bit timid and stay in the net and didn't go out as much as I usually do? Those are essential questions you want to ask in an environment like the combine. You want to ask, what do I know about my game? Not what's happening in the environment, because again, you don't know. You don't know what coaches are thinking. You don't know what scouts are thinking. You don't know what anybody's thinking. Full stop. It's simple. Don't try to think and guess what anyone's thinking about you. Try to know what you're doing with your own process. That's the game. Because the noise is the noise. That's the toughest thing, the biggest challenge at every level. It gets harder and harder. The noise, the noise, the noise. Versus, can I dial in on me? Me against me. What do I know? What did I do today? How did I do it? Was I able to go and create what I know brings value? That's ultimately how you position your mindset. Second period, right? We talk about the story of my life. Directing our performance stories helps us shape the mental flow of our character. So you think about it. It's simple. What kind of stories are when you're done and you come out of the rink, day one, and you come out? Oh, I sucked today. I didn't play good at all. Or, yeah, I was getting my feet under me. Yeah, I didn't get the shot off as much as I wanted to, or I didn't move the puck in these situations. I'll get better next game. It's okay. I know I was just getting underneath. I needed that time in. It's my first time here. Let me figure this out. Be very careful with what kind of stories you start to develop and talk about when you start to walk out, when you start to think about, because those stories are going to shape the character that the scouts and everybody else is going to see. If I think I stunk the first game and I wasn't that good, what's going to happen for the next game? I'm going to try twice as hard. And what happens when I try twice as hard? I'm not actually in my normal rhythm, right? I might turn around. And again, this is just case by case. I'm just giving an example. This is a general example. So this doesn't fit for everybody on this call, but it's a good one. It's a general one that pops up a lot. That again, am I coming out of there going, there's opportunity to get better? Or am I going in thinking, you know what? I got to go twice as hard next game. And by going twice as hard, that means now I'm making more mistakes. I'm not playing my game. I'm getting more frustrated because I'm trying to make up for the lack of what I thought I didn't bring the last game. Well, now I'm trying to bring it into the next game. And that energy management is something that simply does not work in the USHL. It does not work at the higher levels. At the higher levels, what you're trying to do is you're not trying to maximize and be a great performer every single shift and every single night. What you're trying to do is you're trying to become an optimal performer. You're trying to become the same player that we can trust that's going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And if you have some nights where, wow, that was amazing, you created more, you did great, beautiful. That's just cherry on top. But if you think that it's all about chasing, maximize, I got to be the best performance every single game, that is not realistic. That is not what extraordinary individuals do. Extraordinary individuals, I can tell you, I'll give you a personal scenario, right, that I witnessed. Patrick Kane lived a pretty boring life. When you saw his day-to-day routine, he'd come in, do his thing, go home, rinse and repeat again. Come in, do his work, boom, off, head home, back to the family, hang out, come back the next day, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Nothing flashy about it. I don't care what stories you're hearing in the past. I'm giving you what observed, right, currently. And so that boring thing was getting educated and realize, optimize. Energy is energy. So how I bring that to the table is really important. Be careful with the stories that you build up in your head about your performance going into this weekend. Because whatever you start to tell yourself, that's the character that we're going to see. Are we going to see frustration because you're trying too hard? Or are we going to see someone that's cool, calm, collected and go, you know what? I know what I need to do next game. Here we go. You're going to see confidence out of me. Right? So be mindful of that. And the last part is owning our conversations helps us mentally prepare for extraordinary leadership. What type of conversations are you having? Again, how you articulate it, how you bounce it off. One of the best ways to learn is to have conversations with other people that have either been there, right, or that have intelligence, right, on a higher level of understanding through experience, right, or that know how to articulate and think a little bit more about their process and want to dive into and understand it a little bit better, right? These are the kinds of things that when you're having those conversations, it's amazing that when you're putting out your words, how much you learn by simply expressing your own story, your own thoughts, right? A lot of times that we sit back and we don't say anything. And by not saying anything, we lose out on potential, right, for the future. And so leadership, all leadership, think about coaches, think about parenting, think about teachers. Everybody's talking to somebody. And what are they talking about? Well, they're bouncing off ideas. What do you think of that? Hey, you're trying this. Right? Everybody's learning from somebody. They're getting some type of mentorship, right? Some type of support, right? We are social creatures. Full stop. We all talk to our teammates. I'm sure a lot of you guys, you sit, you chat with your teammates. Right? We talk to players all the time. How often do you actually talk about the game with your teammates during the season? It's amazing how often at the youth hockey level, very few players, a tiny percentage actually talks about hockey, actually talks about how to create better plays. And on this call, I'm sure there's a lot more than the usual that we have out there. So it's something to pay attention to, that owning our conversations helps us mentally prepare, because again, leadership. Extraordinary leadership is required if you want to be in the USHL. And extraordinary is nothing more than doing the ordinary, simple tasks. Questions are easy. We all know that. Stories are easy. It's a part of the game. It's part of our fabric, right? And talking, having conversations. That's easy. That's ordinary. There's nothing, wow, oh, that's crazy to hear. There's nothing out of the ordinary here. But what's extraordinary in this process is, are you willing to consciously pay attention to these things and give them the respect they're due? If I want to be at the highest level of anything, you know what? I'm going to put in that extra effort to ask better questions. I'm going to put in that extra effort to make sure my stories don't get too out of control. I'm going to put in that extra effort to make sure I have meaningful, good conversations. Am I willing to do that work and be conscious of that process? Because again, these are three simple tools, three simple ways that if you do them consistently, it's incredible how something that sounds so boring and so simple and so easy makes such an impact in time as you compound those ingredients. Recipe, right? Everything we talked about earlier, that's what it fundamentally comes back to. What is your unique recipe? What do you follow? What are those 3 to 5 ingredients that you're always paying attention to because you know they work for you? So if you guys want to follow, go through here. I'm on Instagram here, guys. I just started a TikTok involving athletes there. So wife has been giving it to me for a while. You got to get on TikTok. Get on TikTok. So I'm on TikTok. And what's great about being on TikTok is actually I'm talking more about my journey as an athlete. So it's not just hockey related. I'm getting more into the life aspect of it. So Bloodline Hockey is obviously more wrapping it in hockey tape, but Evolving Athletes is more to the general, what an athlete's spirit actually is and what the game has taught me through this process. And so let me add this in here, guys. So that link that was in there, if you guys want to get more information, let me just make sure to pull that up in here. I'll shoot you guys the link. So here's that form. I'm going to put it into, so it's inside the chat. I just put up the link in there. So if you guys are interested and you want to get more information and learn more about us, just click on that link. And, again, it's just quick little, get some information. If you're interested, want to hear more. But, the big thing, guys, is takeaway, like I said, knowing what your process is so important when you decide to make that journey into the USHL. You want to know that as I go into that, there's already a part of me that I just know with confidence, this is who I am. And the system's not going to break that. Because the system, if you go in not having your truth, not knowing who you are, I guarantee you the system will break you. They talk about it all the time. Nobody's bigger than the game. The hockey machine is real. Every one of us, right? When we talk about it, guys, Sean, Frank, we can attest to it. It's a real thing. But understanding what your identity is within the machine, that's when you can enjoy it. That's when you have power. Because at least here's how I can contribute to it. Here's my place that I'm enjoying inside of it. But one thing we found with these levels, higher levels, is that if you don't know who you are, if you don't have that truth within you, you're going to struggle trying to make it into the USHL because everybody will smell it. You'll smell it. This weekend, when we're watching you, we'll smell it. Nope, not ready. Nope, not ready. Doesn't have it. It's an instinct. So as you go through the process, I hope these were just a couple things that helped you out, opened up your mind. And I'll open up, guys, if any questions, you can put in the comments here and take a couple minutes, answer some questions for you guys if you have any for heading into the weekend. So remember, we asked earlier questions. Who's got the skill set? Who wants to practice right now? Not easy to do, guys. And this is a perfect case in point. 137 people on here, right? and it's a challenge to ask one question. So it's beautiful. I want you guys to see, as the human being, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're exactly a perfect scenario. Case in point. It's not easy to ask. What should I ask right now? I don't know. Beauty. What questions should a player ask to ease his nervousness when doing shout out? What questions? Could you repeat it? Struggling to understand what you mean exactly with that. What's the indicator of a bad mindset? Yeah, no worries. So indicator of bad mindset, body language, automatic. Body language says all, right? If you see a player shoulders down, hitting the stick, getting upset, frustrated, you come on the bench and it's, speaking negatively to themselves, that right away tells you bad mindset. Because instinctively, cognitively, what's happening? They're having an automatic reaction from what's going on unconsciously. So the only thing you can deduce is that if they keep going down that rabbit hole and they're thinking about, I'm so frustrated, then they're clearly not thinking about the game and the moment of what's happening. So that's a clear indicator right off the bat that you can't fake. We had one of our players at Nationals, right, a week ago, and literally standing in the snack bar, grabbing some food, and I see right out on the ice that when this player, one of the teammates didn't give this player a pass, the shoulders just went down. It was the only time that I saw it. One of our students, only time that I saw it happen in the game. And he goes, that's the only time I did it. If I saw that from the snack bar, if any USHL team, if any college team, if anybody saw that body language, you literally might have gone a line right through your name just from that one moment. So we have to be mindful of that. Body language is a super powerful one. Does the mental side of the game differ between college hockey and NHL? Absolutely. 100%. College hockey, you still have a lot of the support. You have a lot of structure to what's going on, right? The practice schedule, classes, you're living in a community. Pro life is you're now on your own. There's just so many different things, simple stuff, cooking on your own, banking, like there's just so many things that you wouldn't think that are real, that seems so simple, but suddenly now you're in the real world. So you have to take care of your bills, you have to take care of your groceries, and this can put on a cognitive burden. So significantly different, right? Being a professional, you're talking about now coming out of college, and now you're with a lot of grown men who have families, and you're in a locker room with people that have families, a very different mindset. With the writing recipe, what do you think the most important method is when going on the ice? So there's no one method, right? So when writing the recipe, it's a combination of ingredients. So what you're trying to get to the goal, core of is typically most players have 3 ingredients, if you want to think of it that way. What's one defensive ingredient, right, that might be blocking shots? What's one offensive ingredient? Might be your forecheck, right? Just give an general example. And then what's one emotional ingredient, right? Making sure, keeping myself confident and excited about the process. Something like that, right? So when you consciously just dial in on those 3 ingredients, that gives you a particular output. So it's not about one most important. They all synergistically work off of each other. So think about what are at least 2 or 3 that you just know. Yeah, make sure I'm doing this because this is what I know about my game. But there's not just one thing. For some players, hey, you might have one that helps you, but that's a more advanced level thing. If you haven't gone through the basics first, there isn't here's my one thing. One thing is a much more advanced because you've built a foundation first. How heavily are the on-ice and off-ice skills of the comp plan factored into how scouts see you? It depends. Some scouts might watch for that. Others won't. Everybody's different. That's why, one of the things that we point out to players all the time is a lot of players, like we talk about, the maximizing. You want every scout to love you. When the truth is, you just need one. You just need one to say, I really like this kid. There's something about this kid. That's it. So you want to optimize on that level. Can you get one? And so when you think about, on and off ice skills, what factors into it, just be you. Just be you. And let that one person find you and say, yep, I love what I'm seeing. That's it. Because there's no magical formula. One of the things that you notice so much in the game is we overcoach you guys like crazy. You think by your advisor, me, anybody else telling you, here's what you need to do. You think by going and doing that, okay, I'm positioning myself the best that I can. Because again, I can give you 2 or 3 things and say, do this. Great. But if that's not in your nature and that's not who you are, we're going to figure it out at some point. When it comes to the real show, when it comes to really making the team, you're going to be figured out right away. So just because you kind of fake your way through a couple times, it all eventually, we figure it out. You can't navigate unless you're, again, focused on your true nature. So hopefully that helps. What can the interviews consist of when interviewing for a USHL team? Again, it depends on what the coaches are looking for. Some coaches, they might just ask 1 or 2 questions. They might just want to know. They might walk up to you randomly and say, what type of player are you? And it'll literally that simple. And they want to know from you, what is going to be your response? Are you confident in what the answer is? What you go say back to them? Or do you kind of move into, not sure, and right down in there, okay, not certain. I'll do a couple more here, guys, and I'll try to figure out a way. So I want to make sure, let Sean jump on here. Can you tell how looking or analyzing goalie? Yeah, same idea, right? Not a goalie expert in the sense of technical skill, but from a mental perspective, yeah, you start to look at, again, for me personally, when I look at goalies, it's looking at the situational awareness. What's the situation? What are we in? Is this, when the heat is on versus not, right? Do you change in your style as far as the speed, how you're moving? How confident do you look, right, when you're moving? Do you have a certainty about you? Is a big part that we look at with goalies, right? Because we know goalies, it's tough position, tough position. So mentally, being able to understand those components, the big thing that you look at is the body language, the consistency of play, of movement. How much does that stay at the same 90, 95%? This is the energy, or does it kind of drop off when a goal is scored on you, or when 2 goals are scored, or when somebody drives the net on you or is in front of you? Those are little things that you'll look at in analyzing how a goalie is responding to the environments. If your teammate made a bad pass, these are all little things that you'll generally see that could happen. Do I have time?
Yeah, maybe take one more. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, awesome. See a player being the way you describe, will the coach from the weekend be communicating at the time? Again, it depends. Another great question. If the coach feels, hey, I want to come down and talk to you about it, that's not a bad thing. That could be a good thing. But at the same time, as much where you are right now, you don't realize the opportunity that you have right now. You think that's how your character, that's the story in your head, that you think someone needs to come and tell you that that's the wrong way to behave in this environment. A lot of that stuff goes into, once you're talking about higher levels, guys, like, people don't mess around. There's a lot of stuff that you already should know. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about of, you walk into that level, you should already know that about yourself in the game. So I don't know if it helps to answer the question, but that's really, at the end of the day, what the truth is. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. And it's not their responsibility to tell you. So again, guys, I'll try to put in the chat some of these other questions. I'll try to get them out. But no, I appreciate, again, the time. Thank you guys, for jumping on as well, taking the time here to jump on. And again, if there's anything that can help you with in the future, love to stay connected. But other than that, good luck this weekend. thank you, Frank, USHL again for the opportunity. And guys, have at it, have some fun, and here we go. Good luck this weekend to Combine.
As always, thank you, Vinny. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, great chat, and I learned something new every day when I listen to Vinny speak. So I hope you guys took something out of that, and make sure you reach out if you have any other questions. I know I posted the link in the chat there. So yeah. So we'll move on to our next presenter here. So Sean Hogan, Senior Director of Athlete Relations with College Hockey Inc. Sean has an extensive knowledge, in regards to the NHL college hockey landscape. And, his primary responsibility is promoting the NCAA hockey to not only talented athletes, but families as well. So, every time he talks, I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything. So, I hope you guys enjoy his presentation. And, with that said, Sean, take it over.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Frank. As Frank said, my name's Sean Hogan. I'm the Senior Director of Athlete Relations at College Hockey Inc. I know you guys have been online here for a while, so stick with me for about 20, 25 minutes, and hopefully we have some good questions I can help at the end. So we do a variety of things at College Hockey Inc. There's kind of a misperception sometimes in what we do. One of the things that we do is we partner with NCAA Division I athletic departments, and we work with those athletic departments to try to create more NCAA Division I hockey teams. And I'm sure you saw recently, Augustana is going to have an NCAA Division I team. Binghamton has recently announced. Those are projects that we work on, and that's great news for you guys because more teams means more opportunities to pursue NCAA Division I hockey, more opportunities for scholarships, and hopefully use those scholarships to reach the highest levels in the world. So that's one of the things that we do. We do a lot of research at College Hockey Inc. And what I mean by research is we take a look at NCAA players in the NHL, and then we take a look at the age at which things happen. So I'll be able to show you guys today what happens at 16, 17, 18, 19 years old on your road to NCAA Division I. But really at our core, what College Hockey Inc. is we're an education organization. And we're here to educate the young aspiring player, the player just like you. We educate players, parents, coaches, advisors use our services all the time because hockey is such a unique sport in that you have choices on your road to the highest level in the world. Other sports really don't have choices. And what I mean by that, let's say you want to be a football player and you want to play in the NFL. Your road to the NFL is pretty clear cut. You're going to play high school football. You're going to play college football. You're going to be drafted from your university. And then hopefully you'll have an opportunity in the NFL. Hockey players have choices. And one of those choices is to participate in the CHL. And that's the WHL, the OHL, and the QMJHL. And I think everybody here is probably aware that those players are not eligible for NCAA athletics. So that's really the core of what we do is to educate families about NCAA Division I hockey and the benefits of pursuing the NCAA Division I development path compared to other options. We're a small organization. There's only 3 of us that do this job. Mike Snee, he's our executive director in Minnesota. Again, my name's Sean Hogan, and I'm speaking to you today from at East Lansing, Michigan. And Jason Hajdu is our first Canadian employee. He actually he's from Regina, Saskatchewan, but he lives in Kansas City, Missouri. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves today, everything I talk about today is going to be about the highest level of college hockey. USHL players play NCAA Division I hockey. However, I think it's important to understand that there is a variety of levels of college hockey before we get too deep into it. The highest level being NCAA Division I, currently 63 teams on the men's side. Each hockey program has 18 scholarships. And we'll talk more about scholarships a little later in the presentation and what a scholarship looks like and what that means. There's a level called NCAA Division III. There's over 100 schools that participate at the Division III level. The big difference between Division I and Division III, besides the obvious level of play, is Division III schools cannot offer you a scholarship based on your athletic ability. They can offer you merit-based aid, they can offer you financial aid, they can offer you academic scholarships, but a scholarship is not available at the Division III level for being an outstanding hockey player. There's a level called the ACHA. They operate under the same rules as NCAA Division III. It's actually the fastest growing level of college hockey. There's over 500 schools that participate at the ACHA level. But today, everything that I talk about will be about NCAA Division I hockey. Those players obviously have a realistic opportunity of one day playing in the NHL. So today, for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, the beginning of this presentation, we'll talk about college hockey and the NHL and what that relationship looks like today. Talk about the benefits of playing college hockey. Why should you choose NCAA Division I hockey as your development path? We'll educate you about what that looks like. What are the ages at which things happen? What is the average age of a commitment? What's the average age of a freshman NCAA Division I hockey player? What's the average age of a rookie NHL player? And then what makes us unique, and I think makes us a special organization, especially in the world of youth hockey, is we're 100% free 100% of the time. We are funded by the NHL and we're funded by USA Hockey to do what we do, to educate families about NCAA Division I hockey. And you can come to us with questions at any time, and we're happy to answer those questions free of charge. So let's talk a little bit about the NHL. Last season, 349 players with NCAA Division I experience played in the NHL. That was the most ever. To put that in perspective for you, the year before that was the most ever, and the year before that was the most ever, and it's roughly 33% of the league. There was a time 20 years ago or so that it was 8 or 9% of the NHL were former college hockey players. And if you go back far enough, there was a time when there was only one former NCAA player in the NHL. That player was Red Berenson, who went on to have a Hall of Fame coaching career at the University of Michigan. But it's gone from one player in the NHL to 1 in 3 players in the NHL played college hockey. And that number continues to grow because 35% of rookies right now are players that played college hockey. And it's even more true if you're an American player. 80% of the Americans in the NHL played college hockey. And I'm sure you paid attention in just 2 drafts ago when 5 of the top 10 first-round picks were college hockey players. Number 1 overall was Owen Power, Canadian player that played at the University of Michigan. So one thing that comes up, we're back to doing live presentations now. We're out in events all the time, and this typically comes up in Canada at a live event, and it's typically from an advisor. Somebody will say to me, Sean, those NHL stats are all well and good, but the guys that play college hockey that go to the NHL, they only play 1 year of college hockey. So there's a perception out there, maybe you've heard this term before, of one and done. And that didn't sound right to us. So we researched that. We took a look, and we found that 68% of NCAA Division I players in the NHL played at least 3 years of college hockey. And the reason why that's important is because of when you play college hockey. You play college hockey at 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, remaining an NHL prospect while you're earning your degree, compared to some other options where they're under 20 junior leagues, like the WHL or the Q or the O, where you need to be pro ready at 19 or 20 years old. There's just very few players in the world that can play in the NHL as a 19 or 20-year-old. 20% of the NHL right now is undrafted, and over half of the NHL undrafted market is former college hockey players. And the reason is because of the reason I just told you. You're an NHL prospect for longer. You're an NHL prospect at 22 and 23 years old while you're earning your degree. One thing we don't talk about enough for sure, there's an academic component to NCAA Division I hockey, and 92% of our athletes are currently earning their degree. To put that in perspective for you, it's always in the top 5 for NCAA Division I graduation rates. And right now, it's the number 1 graduation rate in all of the NCAA. So 92% of NCAA Division I men's hockey players earn their degree. So what is it about college hockey that prepares you for the NHL? Now, there's a variety of reasons here, and I'm just going to touch on them very briefly. But one of the reasons is the structure of the work week. You're going to practice every day in college hockey, Monday through Thursday. You're going to play your games on Friday and Saturday night. But the thing to keep in mind again is that college hockey is not an under 20 junior league. You're going to be practicing and playing against 23, 24, and 25-year-olds, preparing yourself to play against faster, older, stronger men at the next level. You'll have an opportunity to work with outstanding, educated, and professional strength and conditioning coaches. I'm sure many of you have been on campus, been to an NCAA Division I campus, and the facilities in which you'll do your off-ice training are truly world-class. And the job description for these educated and professional strength and conditioning coaches really is to work with you to make you the most elite athlete you're capable of becoming, and to work with you on injury prevention. You have an opportunity to work with some outstanding coaches. We all know the stories of NCAA coaches in the NHL. Hacksaw is a great example of that in Seattle right now. But the new trend, what we're seeing with the new head coaches being hired, They're hiring coaches with NHL experience. The newish head coach at Western Michigan is an example of that. The newish head coach at Vermont's an example of that. So you have an opportunity to work with coaches that can get you to the next level because they've been at the next level. They've coached at the highest level in the world, and they can work with you to make you an elite athlete that's capable of playing at that level. And then to me, and this is more of an opinion, we don't talk about this enough either. There's a small window of your life, and for some of you, a very few of you, it'll be 18 to 22. For most college hockey players, it's 20 to 24 years old. That you'll have an opportunity to combine a elite athletic opportunity and a world-class educational opportunity. And then the social development that you go through at those ages, to me, the best place to do that is on campus at a world-class university. So there are some things to consider. I know many of you will be eligible for the OHL and the QMJHL draft here this spring. Some of you were drafted last year in the WHL. There's some things to understand when you're interacting with CHL teams to make sure that you maintain your NCAA eligibility. There's a lot of questions about this process. So the first thing to understand is that you cannot sign a contract of any kind. Just signing the contract can jeopardize your NCAA eligibility. Even if you don't plan on playing in any games, just signing it can jeopardize your NCAA eligibility. You cannot play in any games, exhibition games, scrimmage games. Any game against outside competition will jeopardize that eligibility. You cannot accept any gifts. And oftentimes what happens when you're drafted, you'll receive some sort of gift from the team, maybe a jersey or some apparel. 3 options there. You can give it back, donate it to charity, but what everybody does, 99.9% of people, is you pay for that item. And that is so commonplace now that the CHL team likely will send you an invoice when they send you that gift. If you've communicated with them that you want to maintain your NCAA eligibility. Now, where most of the confusion takes place is there is a rule called the 48-hour rule. Now, you are allowed to practice with a CHL team. You can attend a training camp with a CHL team for as long as you like, provided that you do not sign a contract and that you pay for your own way to be there. So meaning that you pay for your transportation and your hotel to be at that camp. Now, if you want that team to pay for you to be there, they can do so one time for a 48-hour period. And that 48-hour period starts once you arrive at the facility. And you can stay longer than that 48 hours, provided you start picking up that hotel bill and those transportation costs after that 48 hours. The reason why it's 48 hours, because people will say, well, that just sounds arbitrary. That doesn't make sense. The reason why it's 48 hours is once you become old enough to be recruited in the NCAA, and we'll talk about those ages here in a minute. Once you become old enough to be recruited, you used to be allotted 5 official visits, but just last week, you have unlimited official visits now. You can visit a school you have unlimited official visits. And an official visit is when a school brings you in and they pay for your transportation and your cost to be there. You meet the coaches. You meet the team, you check out campus, and an official visit is 48 hours long. So you can do unlimited official visits now, 1 per school. So you can visit all 63 schools now officially. That's a new rule. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's kind of a lot of information there. I did an entire presentation on this topic alone. I jammed it in about 2.5 minutes. But if you have questions about that, again, we're a free resource. You get drafted here in the spring and you're like, I need to be walked through this. Give me a call and I'll walk you through it. That being said, I work with families every day, and I know I showed this stat earlier. Not every family chooses NCAA Division I hockey. Some choose the CHL, and it's almost always under the perception that, well, it'll just get my son to the NHL faster. And then just a reminder that 80% of Americans who play college hockey or play in the NHL played college hockey. So let's talk a little bit about making it to the NHL before we get into some ages of which things happen. There's been just over 100 years of NHL hockey. I guess take a guess in your head. How many players have played in the NHL all the time? How many played 1,000 games? How many played just 1 game? And then what percent of everybody that we'll watch on the playoffs tonight, for example, what percent of NHL players, their entire NHL career, it just is in 1 hockey season? So roughly 7,300 players have played in the NHL all the time. Only 359 in over 100 years have played 1,000 games. That number ticked up a little bit this year. 389 more players played just 1 game in the NHL. And then roughly 20% of everybody we watch on TV, their entire NHL experience will happen over the course of 5 or 6 months. Maybe it's one game, maybe it's all 82 regular season games, but they're going to have to go on and do something outside of being known as an NHL player for their careers, because their NHL career lasted maybe 3 weeks, maybe 3 months. That being said, I'm not here to douse your dreams about making the NHL. I think we all know it's hard to make the NHL, but I think it's really difficult to have a career in the NHL. So let's talk about what that looks like. What does it look like for a young player, 15 years old? What happens at 15, 16, 17, and 18, 19, and 20 on your road to NCAA Division I hockey? So I guess take a guess in your heads again at what you think the average age an NCAA player earns their commitment. And again, what I mean by commitment is a coach comes to you and says, hey, I want you to play for my college hockey team. Here's my scholarship offer. At what age do you think that happens? And what's the normal age the first time you put on that college hockey jersey? Normal age for a hockey playing freshman. So to me, this is one of the more important slides in this presentation. I just think it really outlines what it looks like for an NCAA Division I player. The normal age you'll earn a commitment is almost 19 years old. It's going to happen in a college eligible junior league. You know, the USHL is the top league in the U.S. where 99.9% of those players are going to play NCAA Division I hockey. That's typically when your commitment is going to take place. The first time you put on that college hockey jersey, you'll be over 20 years old, be 20 and a half. And the average age of an NHL rookie is 23.6. And believe it or not, just last year was 23.1. And I hear all the time, the NHL is getting younger and younger. But the average NHL rookie age is ticking up. It is getting younger and younger for a handful of players who are elite enough to play in the NHL as teenagers. Just this year, there was 2 players that made their NHL debuts at 27 and 28 years old. So to me, one of the biggest benefits, if you're a player that has a choice, one of the biggest benefits of pursuing NCAA Division I hockey is just that of when you play it. You play at 20, 21, 22, 23, bringing you right to that average NHL rookie age of 23.6 years old. You're earning your degree, and you're an NHL prospect that entire time. So you've lengthened your development path and your chance to get better year over year past the age of 20. So there are some recruiting rules you need to be made aware of, some different dates of when you're eligible to be recruited. The first date to understand is the earliest you're allowed to have a conversation with an NCAA Division I coach is January 1st of grade 10. That's the first time you can have a conversation about playing college hockey. The earliest you're allowed to receive what's called a verbal commitment is August 1st before grade 11. Now, the important thing to understand about those dates is that is not when things happen. There will be a handful of players, again, in the world that will get phone calls on January 1st of grade 10, and a handful of players that will have commitments on August 1st of grade 11. I just showed you a couple slides back here. That's much more likely to happen for you at between 18 and 19 and even 20 years old. And for a goalie, because I get asked this quite a bit, the average commitment age for a goalie is over 19 years old. So it's even a little bit longer for a goalie. So let's talk about where players play on their road to NCAA Division I. I think this slide right here is probably not very eye-opening. This is just American players. I think everybody understands that the USHL is the #1 producer of NCAA Division I players. So you have an opportunity to play in the USHL. You're on the road to NCAA Division I. Now, one thing to highlight here is it says USPHL. What you have to remember is when we do these studies, we're looking at players. Some of these players are 24 and 25. So they would have played in the USPHL Premier when that was the top league. It has been rebranded as the NCDC. So just know this would be the NCDC now. So the other thing I want to show you really quick here is this next study that we did. And I think this is where it gets a little eye-opening for people. Because there's a perception out there that if you're not playing junior hockey at 17 years old, for example, that you're somehow behind the 8 ball. So this is one of the things that we do at College Hockey is we study these types of things, and we take a look at Division I players and where they played at 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then we break it down geographically. If you're from Michigan, you can see. But the big takeaway here is you can see how many players played 18U hockey on their road to NCAA Division I. So if you're a player and you're a good player at 16U, but you're not quite ready at 17 to play against 20-year-olds, because not many players are, you're you don't need to leave the youth hockey system. You can play 18U AAA. You can play prep school. You can play high school hockey your senior year, and still have an excellent opportunity to play NCAA Division I hockey. Because I think oftentimes players make decisions after 16U. There's this fear, oh man, I need to play junior somewhere, and that's just not the case. Our studies show that you can play those 3 levels your senior year and still have an excellent opportunity at the Division I level. Let's jump back to our presentation here. So there's an academic component you need to be made aware of. You need to take your 16 core courses. Now, if you're going to a brick and mortar high school or a traditional high school landscape, you're very likely taking the necessary courses. If you're doing online, which is becoming more popular now, I would advise that you check in with your online administrator to make sure you're taking the necessary courses to remain eligible for NCAA athletics. Now, the SAT and the ACT, there's some new legislation there. They are no longer required for NCAA initial eligibility. However, I advise that you should take one for sure, one or the other. You don't need to take both for 2 reasons. One being that if you test well, there will be academic money available, scholarship money. And 2, there will be schools that will require it for admission to their university. Now, there is something that you must do. You must register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And that website here is eligibilitycenter.org. It's recommended to do in grade 11. You can do it as early as grade 9. You can do it while you're playing junior hockey. But it's a simple website, and they do 2 things. They will certify your academics. They make sure that you took the necessary courses to meet NCAA eligibility. And 2, they're the ones that will make sure you did not play in the OHL, for example. So let's talk a little bit about scholarships as we start to wrap up here. Each hockey program has 18 athletic scholarships. Now, that is different for the Ivy League schools. Princeton, Cornell, Brown, Dartmouth, Yale, Harvard. I think that's all 6. They do not offer athletic scholarships, believe it or not. Not everybody realizes that. However, they have the ability to put together financial packages to make those educations affordable for families. Everybody else has 18 hockey scholarships per hockey team, and they're called equivalency scholarships. And what that means is a coach can break down those scholarships in any way he sees fit. So that means he can offer one player 50%, one player 25%, another player 75%, just so long as they all add up to 18 100% scholarships on that hockey team. Now, the uniqueness of that and the advantage of that is you can combine scholarships. So if you've done a very good job academically, you can be offered a 50% academic scholarship and a 50% hockey scholarship. And now you're at 100% full ride education paid for because you did both things well. You were great off the ice and great on the ice. Now, I'll hear sometimes from families, they'll say, well, my son, not strong academically, so we're gonna sign in the CHL, for example. I still advise those families take a long, hard look at NCAA hockey because you guys know this. Being a Division I athlete is a really big deal. And what I mean by that is you're going to be treated much different on campus than a normal student. It's in the best interest of the coach, the best interest of the athletic director, the best interest of the president of the university that student athletes do well academically. So you'll be provided every extra resource to do just that, not only to achieve your athletic dreams, but to achieve academic success as well. So I hear this quite a bit. Usually most questions are, well, how do I get to the next level? What do I need to do to get to the next level? It always seems like everybody's kind of in a rush to do whatever that next thing is. And I was on staff at Western Michigan University several years ago. At the time, the head coach was Jeff Blashill, who went on to be the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. And now he's an assistant coach in Tampa Bay. But those players, they were just like you. They were just older, bigger, and faster, but they had the same questions. And I thought Blash had great advice. He'd always say, whoa, hold on. And when they came to him and say, hey, what do I need to do to get to the NHL? He'd say, back up and say, you can't focus on your next job until you do a great job where you're at. There is no magic pill. There's no magic team. There's no summer tournament showcase event that you have to sign up for to earn an NCAA Division I opportunity. It really comes down to, regardless of where you're at right now, you're going to have to be one of the better players on the ice for sure. You're going to have to do the right things off the ice. And if you are doing those two things, you'll get an opportunity at the next level. And whatever that next level is, the same thing is going to hold true there too. You're going to have to be one of the best players. You're going to have to do the right things off the ice. And that holds true all the way to the NHL. So finally here, as I wrap up, if we have any questions, at the end of the day, I have no stats to prove this, to say it's 90% fun or 75% fun or anything like that. But college hockey certainly is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to walk into class on Monday, and people are whispering about you. Well, that's so-and-so from the hockey team. I saw him on TV this weekend. They scored 2 goals. He's going to the NHL. A lot of these schools have 50 or 60 years worth of living alumni. And as you guys know, if there's any Canadians in the audience, I'll just clarify this. It is arguable that NCAA Division I athletics is a bigger deal than professional sports in many states, and is followed more closely than even professional sports. You'll have an opportunity to play with the same kids for 4 years. I mean, some of my best friends are the guys that I played hockey with, guys that stood up in my wedding, guys that were there when my children were born. And you'll establish these lifelong relationships that really can't be replaced. So finally here, before we wrap up, just know more players than ever in the NHL played college hockey. That number continues to grow. 80% of Americans in the NHL chose college hockey, and 92% of our athletes are earning their degree. But this might be the most important thing. Just know that if you're 15 years old right now, 14, 15, 16 years old, you likely have 2 or 3 years of development ahead of you before you even have a conversation with an NCAA Division I coach. And once you have that conversation, you still need to play well. You still need to earn that opportunity. And you likely won't put on that jersey until you're over 20. And you'll play 3 or 4 years, bringing you to 23 or 24 years old while you're earning your degree, putting you right in that prime wheelhouse of the average NHL rookie. So everything we do at College Hockey Inc. is free. We have a great website. There's a great FAQ on there that answers tons of questions about eligibility and anything you can think of, agents and advisors. So if you have questions about that stuff, everything we do is free. That's my email address. This is what we do all day long, every single day, is work with families. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. And I appreciate the time today, Frank. I enjoy doing this stuff, so I certainly appreciate it.
Of course, great job too. Yeah, so we'll open up to some questions. I'm sure that you guys have some, so we'll give you a little bit of time.
So something that we're asked typically, I know as guys are thinking, it's hard to sometimes come up with questions on the spot. So we're asked about, like, do I have to have an advisor? Do I have to have an agent? The answer to that is no. You don't have to have one to play college hockey. You don't have to have one to play junior hockey. If you're working with one, you're allowed to work with one. Now, just know that there's a difference between agents and advisors in the eyes of the NCAA. You're allowed to have an advisor. And that's really all they can do, is they can provide advice. An agent is somebody that negotiates contracts and does a variety of other things in the life of a professional athlete. And an agent is not permissible per the NCAA. Now, if you are working with one, just make sure you're being provided a value and you feel like there's value in that relationship. The worst reason to have one is just because somebody else on your team has one. And I see that quite a bit. I'll see somebody will be like, well, that kid's a really good hockey player. He has an advisor. I need to have an advisor now because I want to be a good hockey player. That's not how it works. Just if you want to work with one, make sure you do your homework and you do your research and you feel like you're being provided a value. So, it looks like there's a ton of questions coming in. I know this is a little bit different of a presentation, and I know it's been a long night, but so one other thing that we're asked, just really quick for clarification, is now with like the transfer portal and NLI, and can I lose a scholarship? Like if I'm offered a scholarship, can I lose a scholarship? You cannot lose a scholarship based on athletic ability. So once let's say you're a full ride scholarship guy, you come to campus, and you're just not working out. You're buried on the fourth line. You're not playing well. The coach cannot yank your scholarship based on your athletic ability. You can lose a scholarship if you get in trouble away from the rink, and that's usually pretty serious trouble. Law enforcement's involved, or you don't meet the academic requirements. But even in those cases, there's an office on campus called compliance, and every student athlete has the ability to, defend themselves in that type of situation. So there's no just yanking scholarships, and I think that's a common misperception about NCAA hockey. But Yeah,
Sean,
well, I appreciate the opportunity today, Frank. I enjoyed
we got a couple
I enjoyed yours, man.
questions in the
That was
chat
great
here.
work.
Sean, we got some questions for you in the chat here.
Oh, there's some? Okay.
Out if you want. So,
yeah, go ahead.
First one is Canadian Junior A or Junior B a viable option to play before the USHL or college hockey? And which would the best league be to give you the best opportunity to play college hockey?
So that's great. Great question. Now, I'm not going to rank the leagues, but we do a lot of research on that. If you go to our website, collegehockeyinc.com, you can see some of the research articles that we did on the OJHL and the AJHL and the BCHL. Really, all the provincial junior A leagues are viable paths to NCAA Division I. So depending on where you live and your age, because there's some different rules in Canada of playing in different provinces junior leagues, all of those are viable options on the road to NCAA Division I. In fact, 30% of NCAA hockey is Canadian, and the vast majority of Canadian NCAA players played in those leagues. So great question.
We got a couple more here. I'll just keep firing them off for you.
Yep.
So what are the small details that NCAA scouts look for, even for younger players?
Well, I think Vinny touched on a lot of that. I mean, it's being effective on the ice, is having a high compete level. As Vinny said, what type of player are you? What kind of skill set are you bringing? In the NCAA game, if you're a defenseman, you have to be able to skate nowadays. I mean, the size isn't important anymore. There's not a lot of trees sitting back there on the blue line like there was in my day. You got to be able to get back to get pucks and be a first skate option. And it's really just about what each coach is looking for. But college hockey has become a high-skilled game. It's a high-skilled, fast game. So everybody's got to be able to skate and bring some skill to their game for sure. I saw a question there about goalies, the average age for goalies. So we did a study, and I would urge you, if you're a goalie, to go in and look at collegehockeyinc.com on goalies. We took a look at there's 187 NCAA Division I goalies, and where they played 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 on their road to Division I. And the big takeaway that we found is the average commitment age is almost a year older for goalies. Coaches just wait a little longer on goalies. It's really difficult. I mean, the USHL is a good example of it. It's really difficult to have a good 16 to 17-year-old goalie. Most of the goalies are 19 and 20 years old in the USHL, and that holds true in college hockey. They come to college hockey later as well. So it's about a year longer for goalies. That was one of the big takeaways in our study. So good question.
We got another one here. What is the average GPA of a high school student athlete looking to move into being a college student athlete?
So that's a good question. I don't have an average one to tell you. Here's what I can say. The bar for initial eligibility into NCAA Division I is actually pretty low. I think people think, oh, man, you need to have like a 3.5. So the initial eligibility standards are pretty low. Now, it is different at each school. The admissions offices at each school will navigate the GPA and test scores differently. So obviously the really high-end academic schools, the Ivy League schools, your GPA and your academic marks are going to need to be much higher than maybe another school that's not an Ivy League school. But just know that the initial eligibility standard it's a 2.0. Like, I feel like it's a pretty low standard. So yeah.
Looks like we got two more here. So at what point in the process would D1 schools want to see SAT or ACT scores, since that timeline differs from the typical application process?
So they'll request that information during the recruiting process. So once they talk to you, that'll be one of the first questions that they'll ask. And then they have the ability to go into the eligibility center and request approval of your documentation. The eligibility center will not do that until a school asks them to do so. And the reason for that is everybody's interested in Division I athletics, right? So thousands upon thousands of kids go to the eligibility center, but they'll only certify those that are being told that they're Division I athletes. So at that point is when they'll request that information, is when they start the recruiting process.
Perfect. And then the last one here, is the NCAA type of game they play different than the OHL type of game?
Well, the big difference between the two is is just that NCAA hockey is older, bigger, and faster, right? The OHL is an under 20 junior league, more comparable to the USHL because they're both junior leagues. College hockey is something that takes place past the OHL. The players are bigger, older, and faster. You're going to be playing against 24 and 25-year-olds and not 16 and 17-year-olds. And there's a vast difference in that type of game. In terms of the heaviness and the physicality of the game when you're 16 and 24.
Perfect. We had one more pop in here. Is it a good idea for 15-year-olds to start contacting college coaches, or will they contact you?
So you know what? That's a great question, and I should have covered that. So on our site, collegehockeyinc.com, if you navigate through there, there's a contact coaches link, and we list every NCAA Division I coach's email address, and we do that with their permission. They work with us. They want to be contacted. And I do advise players to reach out to the Division I coaches. Now, know the recruiting rules, right? If it's before January 1st of grade 10, they're not allowed to contact you. But if it's after that, I do advise players to do so. Now, keep those emails short. Don't mass email coaches all at one time. Really keep it to, if you have an elite prospects page, to that, the current team you're playing for, maybe your plans for next year, and the simple question of, I'm interested in your school. I'm interested in your college hockey program. What do I need to do to get to that level? And some will get back to you, and some may not. But I absolutely encourage that players should reach out.
Awesome. Yeah, we haven't had any more roll in yet. So,
Right.
Yeah, I just want to thank, both Vinny and Sean for hopping on and giving their presentations. It's just an added value and resource for you all. So, kudos to what they do and their presentations. I hope you guys learned a ton. And also thank you to hopping on. I know we had a Zoom yesterday and one today. So we appreciate the commitment and you guys being flexible and available on both nights. So with that said, good luck at the combines. I'll see you guys on Thursday, some of you guys on Friday. If you have any questions about anything, what to expect at the combine, feel free to reach out to me at butler@ushl.com. Other than that, I'll let you guys go. Thank you again to Vinny and Sean. And we'll see you guys in Chicago when you get out here. Safe travels.
Thanks, guys.